Hello and welcome back to An Old Man Watches, where today I'm going to be talking about the 1990s trilogy of movies starring everyone's favourite rocket-powered saber-toothed turtle monster, Gamera. In each of these three films, the world faces a terrible, monstrous threat of some kind, and only the mighty Gamera can protect humanity from the dreadful power of the monster in question. So far, so much like the original Gamera films from the 1960s, or for that matter, the recent US Godzilla films as well. Kaiju on kaiju battles have long been a staple of the genre, one that shows no sign of ending if the trailers for Hollywood's latest Godzilla King Kong mashup are anything to go by. But one doesn't generally watch kaiju films for their deep and innovative storylines and complex themes. Well, unless you're watching the last couple of Japanese Godzilla movies, both of which actually have quite a lot to say about people and society in amidst all the monster rampaging. These, however, not really that kind of movie, or not quite that kind of movie. They're deeper than perhaps you might expect in some ways. And the Godzilla movies are definitely a relevant point of comparison, given that Gamera was conceived as a direct competitor for the giant lizard. As such, Gamera began his cinematic life as a terrifying threat, but that lasted only for a single film. His return a year later saw him defend humanity from rival monster Baragon, and it wasn't too much longer before he was being lauded as friend to all children. The giant fire-breathing turtle featured in a film every year between 1965 and 1971, but then other than one clip show style release in 1980, he took a kaiju-sized break from the big screen. Now, I've reviewed the original films, and pretty dreadful would be an accurate summation of their typical quality. So when I learned that Gamera had received a mid-90s reboot, well, my morbid curiosity senses started tingling. So I tracked down a box set of the DVDs, and to be frank, I got an unexpected and rather pleasant surprise, because these are good kaiju films. In fact, they're just plain good science fiction movies. And it's not just me that thinks so. The second film of the trilogy became the first kaiju film to win the Japanese equivalent of the Nebula Award. So, let's talk about each movie in a little bit more detail. So in the 2014 American Godzilla film, a pair of ancient monsters come out of hibernation, just as the two of them cause a swathe of destruction, and the great danger is that they will mate and breed, spawning many more of their kind. So when a third creature, Godzilla himself of course, appears, it's feared that another danger has emerged, but he turns out to be hunting the original monsters instead. Now I mention all this because although many of the details are different, that's pretty much the outline for this film. And honestly, though I quite liked the 2014 Godzilla, I liked this movie better. Now, let's be clear, this movie isn't anywhere near as slick. Gamera's obviously a guy in a suit. The enemy monsters are equally obviously puppets whenever they're not fighting him, and the dialogue includes gems like, "Someday I'll show you around a monster-free Tokyo." But for all the hokum, this film is fun. The human cast mercifully includes no quote-unquote cute children, making them far more tolerable than in the previous Gamera films, and the various kaiju battles are varied and action-packed. Most importantly, the film manages the fine balancing act of taking itself just seriously enough to present the hostile monsters, the Gaios, as a genuine threat, without ever becoming turgid and grim. Guardian of the Universe was a solid re-debut for Gamera, and just, a solid kaiju movie. Gamera then returned for Attack of Legion, which, as I noted, went on to win Japan's equivalent of the Nebula Award. Now, the film starts with a meteor shower cascading down to the Earth. Some of them, you'll be shocked to hear, land in Japan, and show worrying signs of having been able to slow down and change course as they did so. So far, so typical kaiju movie. The threats in such films have often originated from an interplanetary source. Attack of Legion soon veers into less charted territory, however, as these alien intruders turn out to be a pair of symbiotic life forms. One is a massive plant, larger than a building. The other are hundreds of human-sized bug-like creatures with lethal jaws. These latter creatures have a pretty cool design, and they serve two very useful narrative purposes. First, they're too small and agile for Gamera to easily squish them, preventing the giant turtle from immediately saving the day. Second, they give the human characters an enemy which they can actually usefully engage. This provides the film with some fun bug hunt sequences that feel heavily inspired by Aliens. Naturally, the climax of the movie gives Gamera a giant-sized version of these aliens to take on, Turtle Amano. The film's strong visual design carries through to this monster. It looks great and it makes a worthy climactic foe. Its sophisticated design also reflects the ambition of the movie as a whole. I've seen precious few kaiju films which integrate so many scenes of human characters amidst the giant monster action. So yeah, Attack of Legion is a top-tier kaiju film. If you're an all fan of giant monster movies, this is one to seek out. The third and final 90s Gamera film was Revenge of Iris, and this movie received considerable critical praise on release and was also a commercial success, but it paradoxically seems to have led to the franchise taking another long break. You see, this film gets a little bit deeper than the typical kaiju film and acknowledges that for all of Gamera's benevolent intent, he's still a building-sized turtle monster with flaming breath. Having your city protected by Gamera leave entire city blocks completely leveled. It's kind of like treating an infected wound in your arm by amputating the whole limb. It might be better than the alternative, but it's not exactly without its drawbacks. So this film concerns itself with a young woman whose parents were, inadvertently, though she doesn't know that, killed by Gamera during his first 1990s appearance. She understandably doesn't like the big tusked turtle very much, and when she hears of another monster, an enemy of Gamera's, that is imprisoned in a cave, she resolves to free it so they can get their revenge together. Now, if you immediately suspect that this new creature is going to turn out to be much worse than Gamera is, well, yeah, of course. I summon a new monster and it's even more friendly than Gamera. Wouldn't be much of a conflict now, would it? So the resulting film is a bit slower paced than the preceding two films, and certainly a lot more somber in tone. Its exploration of Gamera as an unintentional threat to humanity has been attributed to the long break between films in the franchise. Other than a much more kid-oriented release in 2006 called Gamera the Brave, the giant turtle did not return to screens until last year, when it emerged again in the animated series Gamera Rebirth. So, all three 90s Gamera films are good movies, and each feels sufficiently different from the others to have its own distinct identity. Attack of Legion is my favourite, but I think they're all worth seeing, particularly if you're a kaiju fan. So next time, from giant turtle monsters to the wonders, supposed, of a lost civilization. It's the 1932 offering, Mistress of Atlantis. But that's next time. Until then, thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you've seen today's movie, let me know what you thought of it.